Good afternoon, everybody. First, apologize. I had a bit of a cold about a month ago, so coughed a little bit. It's on me. First, I'd like to go around. Who's an ISSA member, either Kentuckian or another chapter? Okay, so that's what I assumed. I'm the VP of Marketing for this chapter, so obviously kind of called on me to push people to join the chapter. So to create some awareness, we do have monthly meetings. We meet on the east side of Louisville. And additionally, we're going to start trying to have some quarterly training sessions. So if you haven't been aware, we usually do, sometime in the summer, Jeremy, Martin, and Dave will come in and do, I think this last one was using OCL Hashcat for password cracking. Martin showed off some of his cloud services he runs for TrustedSec. If that's the kind of stuff you're looking for, usually it's like $50. Come in for a day, we provide lunch, there's a sponsor there, and then we'll go through and we'll do some hands-on labs. So just create some awareness. If you go to the ISSA page, you can go and I think it's something you got to join now. Kentuckian is on there. So for me, on my brief, I'm going to be talking about security operations. I know it says out there more people, no process, but Dave stole all my thunder. So real quick on who am I? Like I said, I'm the VP of Marketing for the chapter. I'm the lead analyst at a Fortune 50 stock, since they're small, it's UPS. And not only the lead analyst, I was actually the very first analyst. So they decided they wanted to build a security operations center, somewhere on a checklist and said, hey, you're Fortune 100, you should have one of these. So they decided to do that. I came from a DoD background. I was a federal employee. I did a similar work with like PDID, Information Assurance Manager. If you are clients who do a lot of NIST or DICAP, all that kind of stuff. That's the kind of work that I did. Additionally, on the credentials, I'll just say I hold the GX Security Expert number 116. And then additionally, I'm also in the military. I'm part of the Kentucky Army National Guard, and I serve on an 8-member team for computer network defense. The responsibilities are supposed to be for network defense for the state. That's not what we really end up doing, but we do a lot of training and do a lot of national level exercises. So the intent of my brief is to kind of piggyback. I hope everybody agree with Dave's comments. I think what Dave was trying to summarize is that we get all this information about APT from China, Russia. In a way as well, we need to be aware of the APTs that sit on the hallway. Vendors, we don't want them pushing strategy for our organizations. There's a lot of money, a lot of blood in the water, so we need to be aggressive in trying to reinvigorate ourselves, even though we're tired after years and years and years of trying to beat the war drums to come back out. So why give this talk? I hope that it'll provide, if you're not in InfoSec, so the stuff I'll talk about can apply to your work you do now. For managers on how to build adaptive and effective teams. For InfoSec, I'll talk about some lessons learned. And then for the presentation, David Eager, he has a pretty cool website. It's called 365 Days of Clones. Actually, there's an image I really, really wanted to use for the presentation. And I knew it was going to be recorded. It was like, you never know. These people come chasing after me 10 years later. So I shot a quick email. I was like, use every screenshot you want. So I was like, excellent. So I try to theme it. So everything is from David Eager. You can check out his website, 365 Days at Clones. So I figured I would start off first explaining what security operations even means. So the intent is to set an outcome and achieve an outcome. Operations is an intent to bring these people, give them technology, apply some processes, deem it operations, and measure the effectiveness of the team to meet an outcome. But I figured the best way to really explain it is to just provide a story. So the story I'm going to provide is of our team when we went to go do a national level exercise. And because of how things ended up working out, we went poorly planned, poorly trained. We didn't sit on the right conference calls. We just kind of showed up. But effectively, when we were doing this red team, blue team exercise for a week, what I quickly learned is that technology is not all that important to be effective. It's definitely having good people. There was teams that showed up that had 4 times the amount of people that had worked with each other for a long time. They came in with these grand schemes of how we're going to beat the red team. They started trying, going through their TTPs of this, tactics, techniques, procedures on how they're going to beat them. And when we, at the end of it, they quit. And we still fought. So how these exercises usually go is, and I don't know if, on a lot of red team exercises, and in my opinion, even pin tests, a lot of it's scripted. They don't do a good job of actually making it a human adaptable enemy you're going against. I think that's why a lot of the pin testers are trying to push that you need to be integrated with your blue team and help them, because the intent of red teaming is to simulate an enemy. If you're on the red team, you're just going through a script, and you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, and real defense, that enemy sees the blue team make an adjustment, and then they will make an adjustment. It's the same thing. That's the giving back and forth. For a lot of the blue teams, we also noticed they had a lot of technology failures. They came in and said that they're going to implement Splunk, and we're going to push all these nodes here. And they spent more time trying to deploy their technology than actually the real outcome, which is to properly detect and monitor and get information to decision makers. For us, when we first came in, the mindset, we had a captain that was in charge of the operation, and he says, we're going to do it this way. We're going to open Wireshark on every box and watch Wireshark. We're watching ET fly everywhere. It's like, okay. All right, so that's how we kind of went in. Nobody knew each other because we were in 3 different states. Never talked to each other really. And after the first day of the boot falling on our face, what we decided is we're going to adapt a small team concept. So I'm going to have a small team detection cell, I'm going to have a small team operation cell, and then I'm going to have a small team that's a hunt cell. And so what my operation cell focused on primarily was to provide us tools and capabilities to be effective. My hunt cell used those tools and capabilities to do what they do best, which is being deep dive technicians, understanding stuff raw without this pre-assessment of these technologies, using technologies like Bro, Security Onion, ELSA, Splunk, all that kind of stuff. And then the operations guys were to take all this information we collected, all this good work, and get it to the people who were actually going to make decisions and make changes. Because that was a key element as well, is people would find stuff, but because of how the environment was set up, it was to simulate that a company that relies heavily on ICS systems gets hacked. You were activated to respond. So in your response, you're going to help the FBI liaison and the company make changes. Well, teams would come in, find all this stuff, but would forget to tell the FBI liaison of the company that they found all this stuff. So no changes actually changed. So that's why we ended up feeling like we did pretty good. But on that last day, it's still an exercise, and red team still always rules the day. We still ended up losing. What ended up happening actually is those guys were we had this back and forth. Actually, they showed up at Sands Net War on Wednesday. We were like, silly red teamers, let's do this CTF. And we crushed them in the CTF, and we just pointed and laughed, like, I can do red team too. So they got back at us, and what they ended up doing is they popped the domain controller, pushed out a script that would wipe the MBR and reboot all the boxes. If you've not seen Youngcat, pretty much this flash video, just when it rebooted, that's all it played. You can reboot the VMs as much as you want, they wipe the MBR, they win, it's game over, right? That requires the whole range to be reloaded. Unluckily for them, the captain who was responsible for briefing the admiral, his system was wiped too along with his brief, so they lost it. So I figured the story would kind of help explain on what, in operations is what we're trying to go for. So there's 3 core concepts, and you've heard it all before: people, technology, and process. And on people, if you listen to Security Weekly, Jack Damon says this all the time, if you really got to stop whining, there's plenty of people out there, we just need to train them. You're not going to find people out in the real world that already have these skill sets. If you have the skill set, you're not mentoring somebody, you're not helping train other people, you're not showing up, ISSA to find a student that's showing up. If you expect colleges to produce people of any kind of caliber, you can expect that when you go into hiring, you're going to find low-quality talent. I can't tell you how many people I interview that have just graduated college, have a master's in cybersecurity, and I'll ask questions as, can you explain to me if I gave you a PCAP, what would you do with it? Like, I didn't learn that in college. So colleges aren't fixing the problem for us as well. So the first thing is what kind of people do I need? And for us, in implementing a security operations center, is you can quickly get your scope way out of whack. So one of the core things that I did very early is very clearly define the specific skill sets that I needed to be effective in my first year. And then when I was interviewing people, I'm looking for people that are going to meet that core skill set. I need a core team that's going to be able to bleed their knowledge into other people. I have to have people that are motivated to do work on their own. I can't have people that need high supervision. I need people that are used to being handed something, taking it, having self-motivation to drive stuff forward. Because if it's going to rely on this one person to build this big thing, it isn't going to happen. So that was the kind of people that I needed. But with that, it also came with lessons learned on how do you manage these kind of people. People that work in this industry can be hard to deal with. There's a lot of A-type personalities, there's a lot of knowledge. The industry as a whole, when we communicate laterally with other IT organizations, there's a lot of, I know my stuff, you don't. And to be effective, that kind of mentality is not always the best approach in my opinion. I try to take it from be a positive coach. These people just don't know any better. But it's stressful. It really is. But when you want to do this kind of stuff, you got to understand that if I'm going to hire good people, I also need to understand how I'm going to manage these good people. And that comes with communication. Communication is key. Communication internally is a big one. People that work in IT security silo really quickly. If you give them a problem, they want to fix the problem. They don't want to admit that the problem is challenging. They don't want to ask for help. So there's this breaking people out of their shell to be paid to take risks. I want people to take risks. If you're not taking risks and making mistakes, then I have to wonder, are you actually trying to do the job? If you're just going through A, B, and C every day, and then I look at it and it's like, man, after 2 days, I would be bitching that I'm doing A, B, and C every day. I'm lazy. And I look for really lazy people to do these jobs because I know that they're going to find a way to take shortcuts, and those shortcuts lead to the organization where we can focus on stuff that really matters, not doing A, B, and C, which, lo and behold, probably your senior management is perfectly fine with because it checks the box. So that's the piece on people. On technology, there's a podcast I like to listen to. I think it's Down the Security Rabbit Hole, Raphael Lowe's, Michael St. Arcangelo. He always asks this question, what problem are you trying to solve? And I think that's a very good way to approach the issue. If you're talking to a vendor sitting in a booth, just recently, previous place I used to work at, they're like, hey, we're looking at this really cool technology, we got some money, we want to buy it. And it's one of our vendors, Varonis, right? They provide this SharePoint. We'll go in, we'll find your sensitive data in there, we'll tell you the people that are using it, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, it's great technology. But I used to work here. I used to work here for quite a while. And I can tell you that we bought this, we bought this, we bought this, we bought this, and we didn't have the manpower for any of those four to succeed. Why is 5 going to be any different? It's like, you need to go back and understand what's really important, what are your primary drivers, and use those, and make sure that you're not actually giving up the successes that you have, chasing something new. I can tell you how many times people will actually be doing patching somewhat decent, but then they'll get this new product that they want to deploy, and it's all hands on deck on that, and then we forget all the lessons learned on how to actually do patching. One guy leaves, and we don't think, wow, that guy left, he probably left with a skill set. That was we're doing great things, we kind of just let it atrophy and die away. The place I worked at, we used to maintain about top 10% in compliance on patch management. When I left, and I think usually ranked about 48. And it's not me, it's management has to be able to identify what's really important and to be able to build people and have stuff, people fall into line. Part of that is picking a strategy. I sat on a really cool talk over there with the guy who was doing visualizations of security strategies. Anybody sit on that one? Really cool. The only caveat I'll give onto that one is not every organization is ready for NIST risk management framework. To jump into an environment that wants to apply 900 controls, that is hard, okay? That is very hard. Maybe let's look at that as when I hit the next stage of maturity, that's my goal, is to start implementing this risk management framework. My recommendation would be is that if you're not there yet, there's easier guides that maybe are not aligned with NIST, that are a little bit easier to consume, like the SANS top 20 security controls. And my recommendation is don't even take all 20. Keep your scope really small. So find an area of your network. Probably nobody will tell you that this is the crown jewel. You're just going to have to take a chance, say, I guess this is the crown jewel. Pick 5 of them and say within a year, I'd like to have these 5 done well within that small scope. And you're going to learn it's very hard. Most people that are responsible for doing things in your organization aren't doing them. You're going to learn a high level of awareness on where your company struggles. But it's easier to learn those lessons learned when you keep your scope small. Once you start to learn how to apply those effectively, then you can start taking those lessons learned and scale them out. So if you can successfully apply 5 of these controls to a limited scope, then can I apply it to a bigger scope? Can I add a 6, 7, 8 element? And then once you get to the point that you're actually able to apply these 20 controls reasonably within your environment, then go look at NIST risk management framework and say, okay, now this is a codified framework of exactly what I'm doing, and hopefully a good majority of the culture that you needed to drive has already been driven into the organization, and most likely you just have to change the policy documents, because that's really what, in my opinion, risk management framework is. Another really cool one is the Australian government, the Signal Directorate, has a list of strategies as well. And they break it down into what's essential and why it's essential, and then the difficulties that you'll have implementing. So user resistance, upfront costs, and maintenance costs. So what you can use that for is that if you know your company doesn't like to spend a lot of money, doesn't believe that there's a lot of return on investment, if your users complain every time there's a change, well then try to implement a control that's low, low, and low. Maybe the effectiveness is a medium, but they're low, right? And you can help get the culture to start to shift, because a lot of these issues are cultural issues. So that is definitely to pick a strategy. And I think this was hinted on by Dave as well. We really got to stop buying more stuff. Can't tell you how much underutilized equipment there is. I mean, there's people buy things, and then I'll talk to vendors and like, yeah, the worst thing I like to hear is, I was talking to Sandy, who does our SIM, works for IBM, does QRadar. He said that almost every time he goes and talks to a group of analysts at SOC or SIM engineers, they'll say, man, it'd be really nice if your SIM could do this, this, and this. And he's like, and it kills me as the CTO and the co-founder of this startup that was bought. It's like, you already do. You just need to go and do it. There's tons of functionality that's in this equipment, and we're actually buying redundant services. We're not even in our current environment where we're working. We're always working on this new and new and new, and we're never reflecting back on what we've done and was it even effective. For me, it's if you can't metric the problem that you have, you can't look at the problem that you have and say, if I buy this and implement this, and if I come back in a year, my metric looks like this. That's really easy to consume and sell to management of what the return on investment that was. If you don't even track the number of incidents or malware infections, and then you go and buy, let's say you don't track malware infections at all. You have no idea. You just, as they come up, users call, you just deal with them. You don't even track them historically. And you go buy FireEye, and you implement FireEye NX on the wire. And it's doing this sandboxing and deployment and defending. sorry to tell you that there's a lot of stuff that FireEye catches that your existing controls catch already. So, I mean, AV, while dead, is still signature-based, but if it's sandbox, the sandbox is going to say it's evil too. Go figure. So what ends up happening is that if you don't metric that out, you say, this is how many infections I have, I deploy this new technology, then this is what I perceive as how many infections I have now. How will you ever be able to gauge how effective FireEye was for you? If you spend $5 million and Symantec catches all that stuff already and really it caught 100 more infections, it's like, is that worth $5 million worth of investment for you? And that's a big trend I see as well, is that we've got to do a lot better on understanding what those technologies and the cascading effects that they all have. And automation is key too, and this is a big one that I think there's going to be a huge trend because of the skill shortage. So if I can't find enough people, then I just got to start automating more tasks. And automation is good. There's definitely a lot of need of automation. So some of the, I don't know if anybody attended DerbyCon, a lot of these PowerShell frameworks are very effective and are very useful. So some of their issues is on a large enterprise of scaling, they don't scale effectively. Especially open source technology has usually a lot of trouble scaling. But to be able to automate and say, okay, I run a PowerShell query that pulls this kind of information off of 10,000 systems, and then each day goes and does it, and then times that it changes, it sends me an email and I see it. That level of automation is very key, and I'm really glad to see those frameworks. If you'd like more information on the frameworks that are going out there, let me know, and I can show you some of the resources that we use internally. All right, so the last one is process, and this all comes from a really good book that I just finished reading called Team of Teams. General Crystal, a lot of people know from the Rolling Stone article, 4-star McChrystal criticized President Obama, or his staff did, but he used to be the 2-star general in charge of Joint Task Force for Special Operations. And what he went in the Joint Task Force in 2007, and what his book, Team of Teams, pretty much says is that modern management practices are not going to be effective in the next century. So there's an actual management principle called, it's invented by William Taylor, and the thought is to de-skill your workforce as much as possible to make it that employee A do a level of work, you pass it to employee B, pass it to employee C, and a manager will look at A, watch it pass to B, will watch it pass to C, and the manager is the smart one who knows the big picture and can tell when it's not being effective or things need to be changed. The people aren't to talk to each other. This isn't how it's going to work. And where McChrystal came in, he said that I had special operations teams that were waiting for up to 4 hours for approval at my level to pull the trigger. And he said, and in this complex environment, after that 4-hour window, the opportunity was lost. The worst thing to him was what value was he providing? The people at that level had the same knowledge, the same recognition. They knew how sensitive the operation was. They knew how great the opportunity was. But because of the management style, it forced all big decisions up to people in this thought of, if they're higher up the chain, that they're smarter people or they have a wider breadth. Might have worked on a factory floor, but on these complex problems, nobody knows everything. Nobody can predict what's going to happen. So that, for me, I took that model, and then I took the do a few things well model. You can definitely get into, we want to generate our own threat intelligence, and we want to feed that back into the community. And reverse engineering malware is like, I got 3 guys that have been trained in that. Let's start doing that. Let's build some sandboxes here. And what happens is that we get so chaotic and unfocused that we end up doing nothing well. So for me, it was, I want to come in, and after a year, I want to say, I have a catalog of capabilities, but I chose 5, and within a year, I was able to successfully deploy 4 effectively. So then that helps me fight off management with these bright ideas. Let's do this. And it's like, look, we talked. we agree, these 4 capabilities. I can't even get the 5th one deployed. I don't need a 6th one this year. So that helped me fight off that part. I don't know if anybody's knows about this. This is called the Kinup Model. So the Kinup Model, the intent of it is to understand a problem. And I actually gave this brief on this model like 2 months ago to our previous CIO, and it was he's like, oh, I think we're actually here, right? And I was like, actually, no, there's a 5th level right in the middle. It's hard to see. But what the intent of it is to break down the understanding of a problem. Okay, so the analogy that's commonly used on this is traffic. All right, or it's vehicles. All right, so simple is driving a car. Okay, anybody gets a little bit of experience, eventually you can learn how to drive a car. It's not an overly complex task. It's very repetitive. It's easy to learn. The next level is complicated. Complicated would be like breaking your vehicle down. Okay, you could take your vehicle and take every bolt out of it and break it down, but you could put it all back together. That's a complicated problem. So it can be broken into pieces. A complex problem usually it's got a human element to it, and look at that as traffic. Okay, you can take a car and break that down, and it might take you 3 months to rebuild the car. But there's nobody in here who can tell me what traffic will look like if I pick 5 intersections. You say at 2 p.m. tomorrow, what's traffic going to be like exactly? You can't do it. There's all these human decisions that come into play. So that's recognizing the differentiation between a complex problem and a complicated problem. And in InfoSec, most of these problems are complex problems, but we try to pretend like they're complicated problems. If I just apply some controls in place, if I just tell people if you do A, B, and C, it'll just go away. But then you learn that, maybe they don't like C, or C bugs them, or, there's a human element that we pretend like we don't see. And then chaotic, I think they say is like traffic in a third world country. So there's not even any rules. It's just complete chaos, right? At least, in complex, when the lights go red, people stop. Okay? And then disordered is the worst case, which is you don't even know what the problem set you have. Okay? So on these, chaotic usually it's best, if I'm in a chaotic situation, to just act now. And then after I act, I take a look at the problem. Did the problem go away? If it didn't go away, I act again. I take a look at the problem. Did it go away? Okay, it didn't, and then I'm done. Where simple is, I see the problem. I've seen it before. I categorize it in my mind. This is what I do, and this happens, and then I do it. But the big two to really differentiate is the difference between complicated and complex. And that's what General McChrystal was pushing is that we really have to start understanding that we're dealing with complex problems. And his solution for it is to build adaptive teams. So what he means by that is that while you might not like it, to fight InfoSec, you have to push trust down. You have to trust the people that you put in charge of these problems to be effective in their jobs. But with that, the second part of it is awareness. So in the Navy, they do what's called unless otherwise directed. So what it is it's the free will to execute. I trust that you will execute. You'll execute in the best interest of the Navy and the people entrusted to you. But you will create awareness. You will tell senior staff what you are doing. You'll share your lessons learned with other groups with you. If we're dealing with a problem with Dridex campaigns or some other kind of macro-based variant, that we don't just internalize it ourselves. We take those lessons learned and we teach the exchange team what we're seeing. We help the IDS team see what we're seeing. So that high level of awareness with that level of trust builds adaptive and resilient teams. And that's the reason why they did that is that in Special Forces, they invested millions and millions and millions of dollars to ramp up more operations, more operations, more operations. If we just make this a factor, we can beat Al-Qaeda in Iraq. And it wasn't going away, and if they looked at how Al-Qaeda's management network worked, is the number 3 guy in Al-Qaeda is everybody. If somebody did a bombing, they'd YouTube video it, and then 10 minutes later, 4 other cells watch that YouTube video, and then they go naturally with no, I don't need authority, I just go, now's a good time, and go do it. And what they effectively, the big thing for him was is that they would go in, do an operation, the guys would go, tag bag, collect all the intelligence off the guy, they throw that intel into a closet, they say the NSA, the CIA, they'll come back in about 4 hours and pick that up. And then after they're picking it up, they'll spend 2 days producing reports, and then a week later they'll tell us who our next target was. Well, then in that week, that next target has disappeared, right? So what they changed it from is that they make sure the SEAL teams know by awareness and communicating how important it was to the CIA to get that stuff as fast as possible. Vice versa, the CIA was aware that they needed information as quickly as possible. I don't need the full report. Just give me the hot items as soon as you get it, right? And by doing that, they were all of a sudden, instead of taking this slow mode, is they were able to adapt just as quickly as I can, and that's how the surge and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of things on the war, but the crystal was that portion was very effective at fighting to adapt this new model. Additionally, is like I said, on people, your people are going to build a product. And what I've realized is that for whatever reason, return on investment always seems to be tied with quantity. If I say my analysts are doing 30 reports today or this month, and last month they did 20, I must be doing better. And the intent's not quantity. The intent is need an outcome. Quality means is that we are communicating effectively to decision makers and the people that need to know the information, giving them the information that they need to make changes to meet our objectives. If we generate more reports but nobody reads them, we don't explain them to anybody, they don't have the right information. Yes, I guess on a chart where we're saying, look, you gave us more money, we're doing more things. You beat that. You be right there. But for me, quality is really the key, and that's what I fight for, is quality. But with that, you got to expect mistakes, right? So it's a complex problem. Don't have a big picture. You're going to think, you're going to see something, and you're like, man, this is definitely some bad stuff. I think there was a conference I attended, and the guy says, I was convinced. It's like, man, I have found an APT. And then lo and behold, he's like, I found myself. He's like, this is a script I wrote, and I'm the cause of all this trouble, right? So there's going to be mistakes. Mistakes are okay. But you have to be mindful that wins are quickly forgotten, and mistakes seem to live forever, right? You do a great thing, you find something, everybody's like, hoorah, you did it, way to go. You have a mistake 3 years later, it's, hey, you remember that one time you did that, took that down? So, you've got to be quality control. If you can find some way to have an element of that. For us, we do a lot of cross-checking, so bounce ideas off each other. And that it goes back to the people thing. Everybody in Infosec likes to work on their own. Teams that do a good job of having the trust within each other to expose themselves and say, hey, I looked at this. This is what I see. Do you agree with me? Just having that second peer review. There's nobody knows it all. It's not possible. Everybody has such a wide wealth of experience. It's a shame if you don't do that. And also, additionally, you've got to have feedback loops. This is one that, if you set up a multi-tiered organization, and you have people that fall under people that fall under people, feedback usually comes from the top down. The people down don't really feed complaints up. You got to find ways to work on that, and then additionally on processes. You'll have processes that occur that might rely on each other. So you have a SIM, and the SIM has rules, right? And if you have people that are consuming on a low level of triages, and they're like, man, this technology is just creating a lot of dumb work. It's like dumb work. It's like, it doesn't even mean anything, I just close it every time, right? If there's not the feedback that says, take that information, this dumb work, tell me, and then we'll go and tune the technology so that the dumb work isn't there anymore. You got to continue to push on feedback loops. And then, I kind of already hinted on this, but Gene Kim, there's an excellent book he wrote called The Phoenix Project. It's not an InfoSec specific book. It does have a little bit of an element, And if anything, he actually kind of, even though he was the CTO of Tripwire, he kind of, it's not too, he doesn't like how the InfoSec has adapted the problem, and he kind of, read the book if you haven't read the book, it's a really good book. He's a big DevOps guy, and he tries to explain DevOps, and the story effectively is a guy who's really good at a low level, used to be friends with the guy who ends up becoming the CEO. Change has happened, people are fired, and all of a sudden he finds himself in the CIO position. And he looks at how the company functions. There's a lot of core issues that he tries to work out through his own experience. And then there's this guy that works on the board, who's this kind of weird guy, guru, he eats all the donuts kind of thing. And he ends up mentoring them kind of on the side, and he kind of goes through the lessons learned. It's a story, it's a personal relationships like that stuff. It's definitely good. Gene Kim's the author, and he says the same thing like what pretty much Dave was saying, that remember that the outcomes what matters, not any of this other stuff. Right? So you can spend all day implementing this risk management framework. You can get the best people possible. You can buy FireEye technology. But if all this stuff doesn't align well, you don't have good feedback loops, you don't have teams communicating, ultimately your outcome's going to fail, and it's all for naught. You've got all these people, you've got all this technology, and you're not getting the outcome that you want. So for that, to me, it comes down to fight that means you have to be willing to adapt and think out. And I think that's where the hunt teaming thing has started to really come into play. And that's what I do for the SOC is to be a hunt team. And the intent of hunt team, really, is everybody familiar with hunt teaming, or do they think they know what hunt teaming is? Because I can explain it if you want to like. Raise hand. Who knows what hunt teaming is? Raise hands.
Like a high-level explanation.
Okay. So, to me, my personal of what hunt teaming is looking at raw data with as little bias as possible, with no pre-processing, having deep technical knowledge of how all this stuff kind of operates, and looking at stuff through like data mining kind of visibility. Right? I have this big sea of data, and I'm just going to come up with a theory. I'm going to be a researcher. I have a hypothesis. If I was an attacker, this is probably what I'd go after. So maybe I have no IDS alerts on that asset. My SIM is quiet on that asset, but I don't believe it. There's got to be something on there. So I'll take that mindset and I'll start looking at the native logs. And I'll think, what kind of stuff do I think would normally happen, behavioral based? And there's some good resources on it. You definitely don't have to do it yourself. So a good one is the NSA has a spotting adversary with the Windows Event Log monitoring. So in this, really long document. But like a good example is they'll show how to use just basic Windows event logs, not to do five username or 5 authentication attempts failed and then create a SIM offense. What they're saying is that when an attacker does something and they attempt to use a certain methodology, these are the artifacts that are left behind, right? So if you use pass the hash, and I think Dave mentioned on this, if you use pass the hash, there's actually people at NSA that have reverse engineered and have done pass the hash and say that when you do pass the hash, that the event logs are a little weird. There's a little bit of a difference. And you can use that. That's where the hunting phrase comes from. There's a thing called spores, and if most people in Kentucky, I was born and raised in Kentucky. It's to find that initial spore of, here's a footprint, here's a broken branch, and then use that to kind of trace it or look back and see if it leads to something. So the NSA document's a good one for Windows event logs. Another good one is here. If you don't use Security Onion, definitely take a look at Security Onion. It's pretty much a VM in a box. Already has Snort or Suricata. Has Bro. Bro is amazing. If you haven't used Bro, definitely Google Bro. What Bro will do is Bro will collect metadata off the network. Right? So a lot of people are comfortable with net flows and comfortable with PCAPs. Well, the bad thing is net flows aren't enough information. PCAPs is way too much data. So where Bro comes in is it's a protocol analyzer and it can collect metadata. So let's say every time I talk to this web server, what Bro will do is Bro will collect the method of the request, what was requested, the size of the request. If it can do it for files, it can say here was the hash of the file, all that kind of metadata. I won't store. You can have a carbon file if you want it. But you can use that kind of information, and what Doug's got here is he's got DNS traffic being monitored by Grow. It'll be the type of record, what was requested, did the request succeed, what's the timing of the request, and you can use that kind of information to all of a sudden you will be able to identify that by using that metadata that maybe if I do long tail analysis is that if I take a sample of 100 systems, that usually out of those 100 systems, if it's like DNS traffic, you take the Alexia 500 out, and then you're going to have people going to their mom's website or whatever. But the hope is that if you took all those domain requests and you graphed them out, and you said this domain this many times, and you sent them all out and you ordered them, that you had this long tail. Most people go to Fox News, they go to CNN, they go, and then all of a sudden you're going to see this massive drop, and then you're going to have these onesies and twosies. And what you can do is you can say, okay, on DNS traffic, this pipe comes up on long tail analysis for domain names. And then you can have the number of requests that they do, right? Maybe most systems in a day only do, 2,000, 3,000. But this one system on long tail, it's the only one up here with 10,000, right? And you say, okay. And then the type of records, most systems do A records. And that same system does 10,000 text records. It's like, okay, now I do long tail analysis. This one system goes to a domain that nobody else goes to. He goes to it way more than anybody else goes to a domain. And he's doing it to record type that nobody else does. It's like just those three, just taking raw data, looking at it from a statistical analysis, you can quickly identify an odd behavior. Then you can get into doing the reverse engineering, identifying the final records. So that's what hunt teaming is to look at raw data, apply some statistical analysis to it. And then another thing I tell you is definitely lean outside of this industry. Once I started getting into being an analyst, right? So I was an Infosec, I was a security engineer. I deployed SIMs, I deployed IDS, I deployed all this technology. But once I got into a job to be an analyst, it's like, man, I'm not too good at being an analyst. It's like, I know how this technology works, but there's a lot of concepts that I don't feel like I'm very strong in. And it was like, well, I know plenty of agencies that are really good at it. Well, maybe not good. They have good models or theoretical models of doing analysis. Like, so I'm going to learn from them. So, like Carmen Medina, who writes a book, Rebels at Work, was the director of intelligence for the CIA. And she talked about managing analysts, right? And whether they tried to force their analysts to learn and analytical models and all this kind of stuff. There's tons of research that's been done in academia on doing analysis. It's like, well, I know the security engineering side of it. It's like, so like the Kinup Model that comes from, I think Richard, or not Richard here. There's an academia element of that, analytics. So definitely reach outside of InfoSec, broaden yourself out. And that comes with the breakout of the echo chamber. Another big one is to stick to facts. Can't tell you how many times opinions are great, but when you're hitting key decision makers, it's got to stay fact-based. If it doesn't, if you've never seen an intelligence report, usually what they'll do is they'll say, here's the facts. And then here's the analyst's opinion, right? So it very clearly defines that here's the non-refutable, and then this is my assessment of it. If you don't do that, and you don't cross that clear line, people might read your information and think something was a fact, not your opinion, make a decision based off of that, and now when that decision goes poorly, you told them something. It's like, I had a 70% confidence rate in that. I kind of really thought it was, but I don't know, right? That's a bad spot to be. So be very clear on it. Separate the facts. And then to bring it all together, there's a lot of stuff to cover, but don't make it too complex, right? There's tons of models out here that just get ridiculous. You look at it, it's like, you give me 20 years. I'll still be looking at the picture trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. They're definitely useful guides, but really got to keep it simple. Like Dave said, you got to have people of process and technology. The people really are key. There's lots of smart people maybe aren't even in InfoSec, right? But they're going to come. This market's growing. And then use process to help identify where your people needs are and your tech needs are. All right, so in conclusion, like I said, here's some resources. Talked about Rebels at Work, Phoenix Project, Team of Teams. And if you're a techie, if you've not read these books, this is Richard Baitlick, NSM. It's a little dated, but it's really good content if you've not worked with Bro, or he's got a whole snort thing in there too. I'm not a big fan of snort, but Bro's in there. Practical malware analysis. If that's something that you really like, that book's actually really good. It gives you a basic understanding on reverse engineering malware. And then since it's fantasy football, I figured I would know some rules that could apply. So rule number 1 is remember, it's okay if the other team scores. You're not going to win, right? You just got to score more, right? It's okay if they're not 0. Definitely keep a strong bench, right? Somebody leaves. Somebody gets injured, right? You got to have somebody to be able to pull in, put in their position. Use freely available tools. So there's tons of stuff on fantasy football that tells you all this. These people get crazy on how much research they put into it, and they give it all away for free, right? Sounds just like InfoSec. Tons of open source stuff out there. People way smarter than all of us in this room that do all this stuff, and they're like, here, just do it free. And we completely ignore it, and we go talk to vendors and spend 5 minutes talking. And then rule number 4 is don't be, if you read too many expert opinions, all of a sudden you don't know which player to play, right? You're like, man, this guy says I should play this player. This guy says, the defense he's playing against, he's got the advantage. But then the weather, this guy says that the weather's going to be an issue here, right? And all of a sudden, you're not making any decision, right? You're just like, and then football happens, and you're like, oh, I forgot to change my lineup and even put a player in it, right? So you don't want to be indecisive. That's really a big key, is to got to make a decision, right? So that's it for me. My contact, my Twitter handle is Chief Mike. Like I said, I'm the ICSA VP for marketing. I'm always at every ICSA meeting, so you can grab me and talk to me. I'm definitely willing to help out. That's it.